The Cybertruck has one of the highest safety ratings a vehicle can earn, 5 stars across the board. But when one hit a tree in California at nearly 60 miles an hour, that rating didn't seem to matter. So, what does a 5-star rating actually mean? You found Stashed. I'm Pat, firefighter, mechanical engineer, and battery guy. 3 kids lost their lives in a Cybertruck crash last year, and when I say kids, they were 19, 20 years old. And I mentioned last video that there was a lawsuit tied to that incident. I want to break down that crash a little bit, but before I do, it's worth understanding what those safety ratings actually mean. Every vehicle sold in the US gets a crash test rating from NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. But what might surprise you, and a lot of people don't realize how these tests are done, they're done right around 35 miles per hour. And to be fair, cars have gotten much safer over the years. In the 20 years I've been in the fire service, we don't run on nearly as many extrications as we used to, and that's really a good thing. But when we do have to disentangle somebody from a vehicle, it's usually a very high energy crash, the kind where the vehicle safety systems could have been perfect, and physics still takes over. Back in the not so distant past, cars were heavy. They were built out of thick steel using body-on-frame construction, basically a solid frame with a separate body bolted on top. In a crash, that kind of construction didn't absorb much energy. The frame stayed intact, but all the force got transferred directly to the occupants. It might have felt tough, but it didn't do people inside any favors. Then the industry started moving towards lighter, more efficient designs, more plastics, aluminum, and the unibody construction where the frame and body are one structure. And what we found in those early unibody vehicles is that they would deform in the passenger compartment, right between the A and B pillars. That's a bad thing. And when the structure collapses there, it drives the dashboard and the steering wheel into the driver, often causing traumatic leg injuries and trapping people inside. I've seen those kinds of crashes firsthand. And they were brutal to work with because you weren't just cutting metal, you were trying to free someone from the space that literally had folded on top of them. Modern vehicles, they're a completely different story. Engineers design them to absorb energy before it ever reaches the passenger compartment. The front and rear of the car is built as controlled crush zones. They're meant to crumble in very specific ways, converting that kinetic energy into deformation instead of injury. Inside the cabin, you've got a rigid safety cell designed to stay intact, and it's no wonder why extrications have really gone down so much. In most crashes today, the structure does exactly what it's supposed to do. It gives up the car to save the people inside. But all that works within a certain window. Those crash tests at 35 miles an hour. Once speed climbs past that, the energy goes up exponentially, and even the best engineering starts to reach its limit. So when a vehicle earns a 5-star crash rating, it's actually coming from a series of tests run by NHTSA. They don't just crash the car once and call it a day. Each rating comes from multiple tests that look at different types of impact and how well that vehicle protects its occupants inside. One of those tests is the side barrier test. It's meant to simulate getting T-boned at an intersection. They take a moving barrier, basically a really heavy cart, and it slams into a stationary car at about 38 miles per hour. Sensors inside measure how much force that cart puts into the drivers and passengers. Then there's the side pole test. That one represents sliding sideways into a tree or utility pole, usually what happens when a vehicle loses control. They angle the cart and send it sideways into a rigid pole, right where the driver's head would be. That's why you see side curtain airbags in almost every new car today. Those tests made them mandatory. They also evaluate rollover resistance. That's not a crash, it's a combination of lab measurements and on-the-road maneuvers to estimate how likely that car is to roll over during a sudden swerve or loss of control. Think back to the Ford Explorers back in the day. And with electric vehicles, the center of gravity is so incredibly low that they do extremely well in this test. Bigger trucks and SUVs naturally score lower here because of their high center of gravity. And finally, the one most people think of, the frontal crash. In this test, they crash a vehicle straight into a rigid barrier at 35 miles per hour. It's designed to simulate a head-on collision between two vehicles of a similar size. Inside every test vehicle are instrumented dummies, but not the kind you see on TV commercials. These are high-end tech. Each one costs anywhere from $150,000 to millions of dollars, and it all depends on the type. They're packed with sensors that can measure force, acceleration, deflection across the head, chest, legs, and even pelvis. They use adult-sized male, small female, and child-sized dummies, so engineers can see just how a crash affects different body types. After every test, NISTA uses that data to calculate injury risk, things like the probability of a serious head or chest trauma. Those numbers are what turns into that star rating that we see advertised. It's incredibly useful for comparing vehicles under the same conditions, but it's still just that, a benchmark. Real-world crashes almost never happen at 35 miles per hour, and they rarely hit perfectly square on. But one of the problems with this whole system, and this applies to the industry in general, is that these vehicles are designed around the test. I know this from experience. Back when I was a product development engineer, we'd go through iteration after iteration of designs just to make sure the CAE simulations would pass the crash test criteria. The idea was simple. If it passed in simulation, it should pass the physical test on the first try, at least in theory. And honestly, that's how it has to be. In engineering, you have to design to something. You need a target, a standard. Otherwise, you're just guessing. But here's the trade-off. Vehicles become really good at surviving those specific test conditions, and not necessarily everything else. Having spent years on both sides of it, designing the systems and then responding to the real-life crashes, I can tell you it's impossible to design for every scenario. There are just too many variables: angle, speed, structure, terrain, even what the vehicle hits. And this brings us back to the Cybertruck crash, because it's a perfect example of what happens when a real-world impact goes well beyond what any of these standardized tests are meant to simulate. In the Piedmont crash, Piedmont, California, the Cybertruck hit almost dead center right where the front gigacastings are. But here's the thing, when you look at the NISTA crash tests, they're designed for a full frontal impact, a perfectly centered hit across the entire width of the vehicle. And that matters. The Cybertruck structure relies on those massive aluminum gigacastings on each side of the front end. They're engineered to take that load, absorb the energy, and gradually slow the vehicle down. Instead of bending and folding like a traditional steel frame, unibody construction frame, the castings actually shatter in a controlled way, almost like a crumple zone made of small fragments. The problem is, there's not much of anything in the middle of that vehicle to do the same job. If you look at this image, you can see how open the center section really is. There's actually a cross member missing in this image, and it ties those two castings together. It's this one right here. This cross member would help distribute the load between each side of the truck, letting the structure share that impact. But looking at the design, when the vehicle hit that tree, all that force was concentrated right at the weakest point, an area with very little material to absorb that energy. Now compare that to the real crash. Data from the vehicle showed speeds of just over 80 miles per hour, 5 seconds before impact. At that time, the driver still had the accelerator pedal nearly 80% to the floor. By 3.5 seconds, the accelerator pedal had lifted slightly and was only 60% engaged. The brake wasn't even applied until the Cybertruck was 3 seconds from impact. As many people pointed out in my last video, this crash had little to do with the Cybertruck, and realistically, most accidents have nothing to do with the vehicle that's being driven. It had everything to do with the driver. Toxicology results released after the incident showed both alcohol and cocaine in the system of all 3 victims. The driver's blood alcohol level was 0.195%. Pretty incredible. I'm always torn when I go to crashes like this. It's heartbreaking to see anybody lose their life that way. But at the same time, I'm so thankful they didn't take anybody else with them. When the vehicle hit that tree, it was still moving at nearly 60 miles per hour. Let's look at some rough math. Trees act like immovable objects, and I estimate this one penetrated into the vehicle about 4 feet. That means the truck decelerated at a rate roughly 865 feet per second squared. That's pretty significant. For comparison, gravity is right around 32 feet per second squared. So that impact works out to about 27 Gs. Now, every situation is different, but it is possible to survive an impact like this, especially when alcohol is involved. The body can take one hell of a hit. But in this case, it wasn't the impact that killed them. The coroner report listed the cause of death as asphyxiation and smoke inhalation. That's often the part people don't think about. Surviving the crash doesn't mean you always make it out alive. The Cybertruck has a 48-volt lithium-ion battery located right in the impact zone. That battery was likely crushed during the collision, triggering an immediate and intense fire. The impact would have also disabled the electronic door systems, making it much harder to get out, especially in the victim's condition. And you have to remember, with lithium-ion batteries, seconds matter. These batteries don't just burn, they don't just catch on fire, they erupt. It's a violent reaction. And once that violent reaction starts, the heat and the smoke build almost instantly, filling the cabin with toxic gas and superheated air. Even if the flames haven't reached the occupant yet, those conditions inside can become unsurvivable in less than a minute. So, what does that 5-star rating actually mean? It means the vehicle did exactly what it was designed to do, in a test. But the real world doesn't happen in a lab. When speed, impairment, and impact zones all stack up, no rating in the world can change the outcome. The tests save lives, but they don't change physics.